Welcome to All Elite Reviewing, the only podcast that covers every branch of the All Elite universe, from Dynamite to Dark Elevation to all the different places hither and yon, and New Japan Wrestling, AAA, Impact, and who knows where else. And all of those places came home to roost and then some this week, from the fallout of Slammiversary to Fyter Fest Night 2 and all of its hooks into lots and lots of different material. The forbidden door is wide open and swinging everywhere. I am your host, Joshua Starnes.
And I'm Shamik Ghosh.
All right, so
But before we start, I just want to apologize because I know Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Christian Cage were in town this past weekend, and I did see them from a distance, but I didn't have the balls to go up and ask them to be on the show. So I do apologize for that.
That is a fault, and you were going to be punished for that later. So now we're gonna have to wait till the next convention that comes through. You're gonna have to go to it, and you're gonna have to ask me whatever.
You're gonna make me dress like a varsity blonde for a show or something.
I am with the wig and the jacket and everything, and you're gonna have to pay to get all of that stuff. I'm gonna make you. You're gonna have to dress, and what's worse, I'm gonna make you dress as Julia Hart. And you're gonna have to go, and you're gonna have to get. We'll get to that. And you're gonna have to just make sure it is a baguette. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have. Well, it means wood in France, but anyway, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to go and get somebody as a guest onto this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'll get somebody as a guest. Might not be famous.
And I think she would have said yes.
Might be my hand with a mustache on it, but it's gonna be somebody.
Doesn't count. Oh. And I think they would have done it because she did a promo for her, because Britt Baker did a promo for her Nyla Rose match with Martin Kove of the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai fame, who also did a promo. So you get a lot of nice. Was also there.
Along with her own Josh Starnes, actually. So yeah.
Yeah, I was there too with Red 5 Comics. Had a good show. Since I was working and I couldn't wander, I didn't have a chance to go over and ask Christian Cage or Britt Baker if they could go do anything.
So you're kind of worse than me.
No, I had an excuse. You had no excuse. You were busy palling around with Rogue, and
I almost got away with it.
Nope, didn't get away with it at all. But that's okay. Then they had to immediately leave Houston, but they'll be back in a couple of weeks, so maybe you can track them down after Dynamite on August 18th. But meanwhile, they did have to fly out to not that far away, to Garland, Texas, just outside of Dallas, for Fyter Fest Night 2. But before then, we actually have to catch up on the remaining material that happened in Austin, Texas, with a full 2 hours of Dark and Dark Elevation filmed around last week's Fyter Fest Night 1. And props to this crowd who stayed for 4 hours of wrestling, and in some cases stayed really hot. I mean, not for everything, because the dark matches are dark matches, and you can see where they're sort of waiting for stuff, but there were some people who got some real pops. And this is the second time ever we had, wasn't the intro match, but one of the early matches was Kylan King versus Thunder Rosa. And Thunder Rosa, who announced signed with AEW permanently this week, like we didn't know that was going to happen.
News that I thought already happened, basically.
Right. But she got now granted, she's a Texas native and her mission for wrestling is here, but
and she was wearing Selena clothes. Did you notice that?
Was. Yes,
she was wearing Selena clothes. I was like, I think she's sexing up here right here with the Selena stuff. So.
She got a massive pop. She's going to actually be in town in a week. She's going to be in Conroe, the Conroe Convention Center, with Mission Pro Wrestling putting on
in the Houston area, and you're listening. It'll be the time to catch you. She's
time to drive up there. There's still some.
But Kylan King, I guess she's just on this Fighting Faces tour.
I guess so.
We keep talking about it every week like it's going to end, and I guess it's just not.
I feel bad because I feel like they could be making her into a face to be someone else to add. Look, they were doing that for a while with her working with Red Velvet and Big Swole. But then that didn't happen. Then it hasn't happened.
I don't think that's a thing anymore.
I haven't seen them come out together.
And she's been kind of like feeling out this heelish role whenever she does some kind of heelish thing sometimes. Like kind of when this match, I noticed she was a lot like, "Hey, why aren't you cheering for me? Like you're cheering for her, why not me?" That type of thing, like the reluctant face type of thing. So
she did it really well. I did. Yeah. And there was a smattering of
to be in. That's what I'm saying.
But her comfort level is way high for being on just a few weeks on not on TV, but in front of lots of live crowds. And there was a smattering of applause, so you can kind of tell the people who've been in the crowd who've been watching Dark and and recognize who she was. But it was a good match. I mean, I will say maybe part of it is all these heel matches they've been putting her with their most experienced baby faces and giving her like really good ring times with people who are really Thunder Rosa, Yuka Sakazaki, Riho, people who are going to both put on a good match, but show her how to put on
Riho's a lot of
really good match. So maybe that means they're getting her ready for bigger stuff, especially as we keep saying for Rampage to debut. So time will tell. But yeah, Thunder Rosa probably out of all the dark matches, she probably got the second biggest pop after Jungle Boy.
Wait, you said she's from Texas?
Yeah.
They build her as from being from Tijuana.
They do build her as from the graveyards of Tijuana. But
is that a thing? Like Death Valley to us?
I think so.
Okay.
I believe maybe she actually is originally from Tijuana. My understanding was she's from like somewhere in the valley near McAllen, something like that.
Oh, good. Because I feel like in wrestling, like
and I know that's where
New York.
Yeah, no, because that's where Mission Pro Wrestling is located. So maybe that's why I'm thinking
they use a lot of local enhancement talent.
They sure
well,
do.
Not a lot. They use some, which I was happy to see.
Yeah. Well, obviously, Dustin Rhodes Wrestling Academy is in Austin, Texas, so they have a lot of access to a lot of people who are going through his academy as well. So, but this was a nice match. There wasn't a whole lot on Dark this week, but once again, we had the continuation of the Varsity Blondes versus the Acclaimed, leading to what it seems like inevitably will be should be a match for Dynamite as they compete for who will be the number right currently. Varsity Blondes are the number one ranked tag team, and the Acclaimed are number 2 because wins and losses matter in AEW. And they want that spot. They had a really, really good match. Varsity Blondes once again came out to a big pop, not an Acclaimed size pop. But
you're about to say,
they got a big. Whenever you hear, and I heard the same thing for the Julia Hart match on Elevation. Whenever people hear the roar, that pop starts. So I will not rest, Shmeek.
How's that go?
Until roar. Wow. I will not rest until you let the exactly you should. Until you let the love of the Varsity Blondes into your heart. I'm gonna make you a blonde believer, Shmeek.
Well, I guess the Varsity Blondes are a lot of things according to Max Caster and Anthony Bowen.
This really is the perfect
during the rap during
this is the perfect feud for both groups.
Rap about each week, right?
This is the perfect feud for both groups for so many reasons. I will say before you get into that, I really like they came out with 5 and 10 from the Dark Order, and they did the big lift, and Julia Hart was doing the Dark Order logo. It was cool, it was fun, the crowd was really into it, and then of course the Acclaimed back. Well, the Private Party came out first, but then of course, and I thought this was interesting. Private Party came out first, Acclaimed came out last, but then who is going to follow an Acclaimed entrance when Max Caster starts his rap?
Yeah, you can't follow the rap, right? The rap is what you ended on because that's what gets people mad.
Exactly.
So
and he knows when he's on YouTube.
But on his rap this time, he wasn't actually he got weirdly political. Like it wasn't sexual. He left that to Anthony Bowen for the
well, I don't know. He did have a giant long piece of bread that he threw at Julia Hart.
What is that? Is it a dick joke? Or is it like a white bread joke? Is it a race joke?
I assumed that it was a dildo joke.
Oh, so that's the French.
That's how I took it. And especially because they kept from the way she was
origin joke.
No, the way she was yes, it was a Blue Origin joke. From the way that she threw it away and was giving and especially with the promo they threw at the end of it, and they keep turning to her to build up heat against the Varsity Blondes, which is a good strategy. Especially with,
but it makes you just like to claim much more. They're like, oh shit.
Exactly.
Let me read to you.
Okay,
what
let's hear.
Anthony Bowen said. By the way,
before we get to that, I will say that this was a good match, and they claimed whenever they should have, and they got everyone involved up to the point where even Julia. And the reason they did that, I think, is Julia Hart actually got up on the apron to pull the boombox out of Anthony Bowen's hands, so he couldn't cheat. Although they still found ways to cheat, of course. And have the mic drop. And this match totally broke down to the point where no one knew who was the legal man, but it didn't matter because it was a ton of fun. The good guy, the baby faces were, they got some of the most over mid-card baby faces in here. They got some of the most hated mid-card heels in here. this really goes to show that Private Party needs to go back to being baby faces because they're never going to be hated the way the Acclaimed are hated.
I know, and even when they come out to when they came out to Angelico's match this time, they even like did his dance, and I was like, see, this, but people like seeing that.
They do. They just like it. But also, and it moves the feud along nicely. It needs to get that. But we when we talk about Acclaim, we talk about how Max Caster can't ever be anything other than a heel and how good he is on the mic. But it's so weird when they give it to Bowens because it's always I never quite sure what Bowen's mic skills were like, but he was on fire tonight. This is
and even because Bowens like
from him.
Because Bowens has always been to me very solid in the ring, but it's one of those things like is he gonna get like not like Casters on some high level, but obviously like if you're comparing them, maybe slightly above that type of thing. But maybe just he never got that chance to get the ball and run, that type of stuff. So, but now that he's getting to mic time, and again, he was on fire this week. I mean, I was just like taking notes, and I'm just like looking up, and I'm like, the fuck? And then I had to like text you, like, I was laughing about what he said for like a good 20 minutes after I heard it. So
it felt like he sat in the back saying, "Oh, you think Max can get some heat? I'll get some fucking heat."
So he said, post-match, Bowens addressed his little Eiffel Tower comment from last week, right? So he said, "I'm sorry I said something about your trip to France." And so, which we all knew it was the Eiffel Tower thing, which is, kind of three-way sexual position for you guys that don't know. So, you think it's going to be a good apology, but we all know it's not really going to be an apology, especially with Max Caster's in the background making faces the whole time. Like, you're like, okay, where is it? He's like, nah, y'all eat shit. Wait, where is it? Okay, y'all eat shit. Where'd it go? Oh, I lost it. Damn it. Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay.
I'm going to edit this.
I'm tired of playing second fiddle to a tag team whose strongest member of the tag team is a cheerleader who loves to get tag teamed. And I was like, what? Because I was like, okay, you're saying tag team a lot. And then when he said, who loves to get tag teamed, I was like, there it is. That's the nail. That's the nail right there.
And the director was like, the director was on
right there.
The director was on point with this because he cut right to Julia Hart right away.
Yeah,
she had the perfect face reaction to it.
Yeah, that was great. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. It's definitely the funniest thing I've heard Bowen say. It's funnier than a lot of the stuff that Max Caster said, and it was just one of those things that worked in how simple it was. It's a simple thing. Say tag team over again, and then alluded to sex.
This is a feud with a blow-off match I am really looking forward to. And this is exactly the way you build it. And they're using Dark to do it in the perfect way. When it comes on to Dynamite, people who only watch Dynamite are going to be sitting going, okay, well, it's the top two tag teams of wrestling, whatever. But no, there is some people who've been paying attention will know there is some heat.
There's sauce on this thing.
To this thing.
So they haven't booked the match yet, right? It's just them kind of going at each other. I'm guessing it's going to lead to a booking. But whenever Varsity Blondes have enough, and they're going to like, dadgummit, fine, we'll get you or whatever. We'll get you your match.
I'm sure it's coming. It's got to be coming at some point in August, I would expect. I think they'll blow it off before the pay-per-view. But who knows? Not as much, because it's short, so this was a lot of squashes. They introduced Abaddon into the live crowd environment, and she gets over
the entertainment break
environment. Yeah.
Little, like that, watching a horror movie with your mask, like it's cool, whatever.
The only other real thankfully, thank goodness, once again, Joey Janela was missing from this week's.
That's right.
So did not miss it. And when I say he was missing, what I should actually say is was not missed at all whatsoever. Was glad not to see any of that. We got somebody else from GCW this week, which we will get to shortly. Right. So the only other big feud that was in the making was we got some more of the build towards Big Swole and Diamante. Big Swole responded to Diamante with a little promo before she had a showcase match with Buddy, and then was distracted. Had the classic. So one of the pieces of classic wrestling I do kind of wish AEW would do away with. They don't do it as much as WWE does, but they still do it too much. Diamante comes out in the middle of Big Swole's match, like you do with a mic, starts shit talking her, trash talking her. Big Swole gets distracted, rolled up, pinned by Bunny. So, and Bunny's on TV right now, and Big Swole's not. So that sort of makes sense too, but still, it keeps that feud going. So here's the $1 million question: Does this feud blow off on Dynamite, or is this stay a dark and
You're
light
like
feud?
$500,000 question, $1 million question. But yeah.
$65,000 question.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I assume this is a match that is going to get a blow off on Dark, not, or maybe
Yeah.
Rampage if it lasts that long.
Or Rampage. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
You know, I don't think this is going to make it to Dynamite at all. I think it's more, you know what, the way I kind of look at it is I feel the AEW was like, hey, we criminally underused Diamante for so long. Like, let's give her something to do. Let her talk too, because she hasn't even done that. And which is I like that she's talking more and everything. So I think it has more of that kind of feel of like, hey, we need these guys to do something with each other because otherwise they're not going to do anything. So
that's true. Yeah. And get them to have stuff going and see that they can actually do it so they can find a place on TV. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, exactly. There was also another nice promo. We opened and closed with Dustin Rhodes in his hometown of Austin. So why not with a promo against Aaron Solo and the Factory, because Nightmare Family and the Nightmare Factory and the Factory are still
this feud needs to end, man. I'm just
never. This feud will continue until the
Cody
sun.
got moved on to getting his face kicked in by Malachi Black, but I'm like, the rest of them can't move on to other shit.
This feud will go on until the sun goes cold and dark and expands, and
we get like Aaron Solo Jr. or something like
maybe versus Dustin Rhodes Jr. Well, Dustin has a daughter, so maybe Aaron Solo Jr. and Dustin's daughter can wrestle in 15 years.
Yeah, and then Brady and Cody's new kid.
Yeah, there you go. The new Factory Jr.
And then all of Matt Hardy's children too.
In between that, I know, but I want to jump to Elevation in a second, but I do want to touch on the Aaron Solo match. But in between, I do want to point out there was a very, very nice squash. Wardlow came out, squashed one of the Factory students, Chad Lennox.
Yeah, he got an introduction and everything.
Yeah, Chad Lennox. Not as good as the squashing of what's the poor dude who took all the body slams and
Chandler Hopkins.
Yeah. So I give this 1.5 Chandler Hopkins on the Hopkins scale of being destroyed by a big dude.
I mean, yeah, he tried, but Hopkins is taking
he's taking some obliterated to the dark. Really? Well, that's the thing. That is now Chandler Hopkins is now my measuring stick for being obliterated by a big giant dude.
He's earned it.
I haven't seen anybody do it better.
He's been through so much, Josh. He's earned this. He's earned this shot from us.
as of right now, and I want to tweet this to him too. As of right now, I am measuring all other being obliterated, and it's only there's only a handful of guys that get it. So it's only for like Will Hobbs, Brian Cage, Wardlow, Jake Hager, Lance Archer. Only those do you get measured against the Chandler Hopkins scale. Nothing else really counts.
Look, we don't have anything against you. We don't like seeing people get beat up. It's just you're so good at it.
Yes, we do. We really, really do. No, we really do.
Yeah, and we love seeing that with a wrestling fans, for fuck's sake. Yeah,
and especially when it's done that well. When it's done that well. This was good. I mean, it was 2 moves. He got goozled in a way I don't think I've ever seen Wardlow do before he got the knee drop on the head. It wasn't bones melted into putty good. So like I said, 1.5 Chandler Hopkins on the Chandler Hopkins scale,
which is like 5.5 body slams from Will Hobbs,
something like that. And then of course
but I do want to touch on the Solo promo because he comes out ripping on Austin, right? And I used to live in Austin, and I went to UT for a year, actually, my first year in college, back in 1996. Wow, that's so long ago. But yeah, so I thought it was funny that he comes out and he's like, yeah, your bad bars downtown, which I'm like, obviously, it's the 6th Street thing, which if you talk to anybody from Houston, 6th Street's actually gotten ridiculous these days. So you make fun of their bars, we're kind of most of be on their page. Yeah. But then he's like, your stupid cinemas. And I'm like, your stupid cinemas? Like, first of all, no one goes and hangs out the cinema. I'm like, is this an Alamo Draft House?
It's an Alamo Draft House, Austin Film Festival, Austin's, the indie film. I totally got that. Because when I do go to Austin, I actually, because it's mostly movie related stuff, I spend like a giant amount of time in their movie places. So yeah.
Well, I guess that cut deep to you.
That cut deep to me. I was like, Aaron Solo, beat his ass.
Yeah, that's the only thing I have to say on that.
Maybe I should be going to the Austin shows instead of the Houston shows, because I'm much more likely to be the type of cheap heat they're going for, because I am easy mark for that kind of cheap heat. And then, but it was a decent match. He didn't really get a lot of heat with that. They tried hard, But I think from what I understand, that was probably like the last match on a marathon 4-hour taping that had all of dark and elevation.
Just go for
and-
Texas A&M.
and,
That's the cheap heat thing to do in Austin. That's
be.
if you know
It
anything
should
about
be.
Austin, that's a cheap heat thing to do.
Or apparently a Whataburger line, but that already got
Whataburger.
used.
Even Dallas, I'm pretty sure they'll shit on Dallas like with the rest of us. So yeah.
But you know what? I saw Tay Conti was tweeting leaving that she preferred In-N-Out Burger, Whataburger. I'm like, number one, never come back to this state. And number two, somebody, yeah, right. Number two, somebody should have used that on one of the dark shows then, because that will get you some booze.
I mean, I'll still hook her up. We'll still go out. Just like I say, In-N-Out, not to Whataburger. So
I have to cut that, or we're gonna get
really good time to be Hindu. So I'm like, I don't even need beef. So
come on, man. You're gonna get me too. You're gonna get this whole podcast me too. But that does bring us into
Take her in for burgers. That was like the whole Dr. Britt Baker like thing for like storyline for a while about burgers, and now I'm the asshole again. All right.
Well, that's your role, which does bring us into Elevation, which was nice and long because since they can't both be short, but with a lot of squashes. There was another. Will Hobbs did come in and lay a nice little bit promo. I like his promos have gotten so good.
I thought this one was going to be a little bit better, but I would admit that they're trending up.
He's getting better each one he does.
He's definitely getting better.
He seems to be getting more and more comfortable, and that's really probably the only thing keeping him from being like a regular Dynamite. I mean, the only downside is he's a faction with Ricky Starks, who's always going to be given the mic because he's going to be a better talker.
Well, Ricky's so damn good at it.
Everyone on the roster, but what it makes it very clear is the day will come. Probably sooner rather than later, but that doesn't, I don't know how long they'll keep him with Team Taz, but he's probably better off on his own. The day will come when he'll go off and be on his own and be able to be probably either a really good babyface or a really good heel. It seems like,
but even when you look at his matches, like now, because he had a squash match on here,
and which I will give,
and it wasn't
give this squash
again,
match,
which I'm hoping they come back to that. But even like the pacing and his reactions and expressions during the match, like he's really putting it all together.
His ring stuff, I find no fault with. I can't really find any. Like the Adam Page match a couple of weeks ago was about as good as you could get. His ring stuff, I find no fault with. Like probably the only thing he hasn't had enough experience with is promo time. But every time he's doing it now, he's just more and more comfortable with it. That's really,
what you want to see, right? Improvement. That's fine. Give them reason.
I foresee him being able to go off on his own and eventually get into main event. I think he's someone who should
he
be
has a
able
star
into
quality
main
on
event
him,
stuff.
I think, honestly. And and again, you have to be impressed with the people that you've seen improve before your eyes, right? Because that means they're really in it to win it. So
squash match, though, I only give one Chandler Hawkins on the Chandler.
I mean, he only
on the Chandler Hawkins.
I'm gonna make
it was
it
a good spine buster
relationship with how many times you body slam the guy.
Right.
Like that's how many stars they give you.
There was one.
The 10-star match.
There was one really good spine buster, but that's really all you could say about it.
I guess he's saving it for something else.
We were talking about about guys being tired and difficulty to get a crowd alive beyond an entrance. This crowd came alive for Chaos Project versus Best Friends, and they stayed alive. I like
finally understand Chaos Project.
When Dr. Luther was trying to stop Orange Cassidy from putting his hands in his pockets, people were standing on their feet throughout the entire arena.
I get Luther now,
desperately,
man. I finally get him. I'm like, okay, now this is all coming together. It's on me. It's my thing. I just never really understood what Chaos Project was really about. But
there were major segments on Dynamite. There have been major main event segments on Dynamite that did not get that many people on their feet all at the same time, desperately invested in what was happening in the ring as much as those people were invested in Orange Cassidy getting his hands in.
And I love the end. The end was so great.
It was great. It was perfect. The orange punch wobbles, lands on Serpentico.
He pinned his own Serpentico.
Perfect. And then they both go sit on him. Perfect ending.
Hilarious. I thought it was awesome. That was definitely the best Chaos Project match I've seen.
Oh, that was the most fun. The kids really liked it when Luther got his face put into -1's birthday cake, which of course, I mean, why wouldn't you? That's what that is. I mean, that's what that's there for. But this was tremendous. This is one of the best bits on the.
Yeah, I'm on board with Chaos Project now. I'm fully on board with it. I'm like, all right, now I get it. If you got this type of stuff and you keep me this entertained, then all right, then you're.
But you want to talk about being over? I mean, Orange Cassidy's out there on a dark match, and he got a crowd full of 4,000 people on their feet with the hands in the pocket gimmick. that everyone says is a ridiculous gimmick that ruins wrestling. Those people,
Great.
when you can get that many people
He's not
invested
doing
in
it.
that, you are over. No, and anybody who says otherwise, I don't know what they're talking about.
They just don't get it. They
don't know
life.
pro
They
wrestling.
lack the joy de vivre that drives us, you know.
I guess so. I mean, that is about as pro wrestling as you can get, and it worked.
I guess that's it. Is that meaning becomes subjective to people, right?
Yeah.
You know.
There was, you know, like the last thing I'll say about it is that, you know, they have part of the Chaos Project gimmick is that Luther uses Serpentico as a weapon in the ring, whether he wants to or not. There was a great exchange on Twitter where somebody was like, "Hey, Lance Archer should just use Serpentico as a weapon. So grab Serpentico and use him as a weapon." And Serpentico actually responded to it. He's like, "No, dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
and that's what I would say.
Clear during the matches that he's not really in favor of this battle plan that they have. So, you know, like, and then even like waves Luther, tries to wave Luther off sometimes during the match. So you see,
like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, no, please, no.
And that was easily the most fun I had in this. Although there were two really good matches, and the main event this time was once again Pentagon and Eddie Kingston versus Pretty
JD
Picture, Drake and Cesar Bononi, which wasn't as good. They've done that before and done it better. And these guys have all done better elevation main events. It was fine, but compared to some of the other stuff that was both on this,
I was surprised that Penta was an arm breaker. It was just an arm breaker. Like,
it was just there. It was fine. Yeah, I think it was to be like, hey, we know you guys all want to see Eddie wrestle. We want to see Pentagon, so we're going to bring them out and let you see them do their stuff. Which is fine.
But he did a bunch of moves, but just to end the whole thing on an arm breaker, just weird. Like instead of like an arm submission or something, it was just literally just an arm breaker, and that was it.
I feel like he's done that before, but
post match they had. If you listen to that stuff, like the promos, like the crowd and everything, and that's the thing. Eddie, man, like Eddie's such a good. Even though I wish his in-ring stuff was a little bit better, no one can touch him on the mic, and he can be a face or a heel.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Very
he's
easily.
So good at being either.
And I think that's why they make sure to end with him, because they know he can get on the mic and do the show closing stuff and the go home stuff. But he got overshadowed by a lot of stuff like the Dante Martin Sean Dean match. Sean Dean doesn't get as much, and he didn't get. I'd like to see he's not getting like the Lee Johnson level pops, just too bad. But he had a really, really good match with Dante Martin. Both of those guys can have a good match with anyone. But Angelico and Jungle Boy put on like.
I love that match.
You would think they were on
a party coming out and doing the dances with Angelico. I thought that was great, and I like just the way they. I'm a big fan of both of those wrestlers, to tell you the truth. And one of my friends had a very good analogy or metaphor, if you will, for Angelico. He was saying that he's like, yeah, he reminds me like a boa constrictor. And I was like, that's a pretty good, right? Because he's like long and lean submission guy. Like, although he lost by submission in this match.
Well, and that's the thing, because that's Jungle Boy is now winning by submission, and the submission master got beat by Jungle Boy. He's maybe not the submission master. He is apparently quite a bit taller than either.
Just him with the private party, which I'm fine with.
No, but man, that crowd went as soon as that the Jungle Boy music started hitting. That crowd lost their minds.
But I will say, it's hard to clap when you're dancing like Angelico. It's hard to clap when you're doing
he got a pop.
So the oversness isn't in this clapping sound, it's in the group.
How do you do that dance? Can you show us some more?
And then you got to do this, and then you got to cup your ball, the ball cup.
No, he's doing the rosary. He's doing the cross. Yeah. No, he's doing the cross, man. He's crossing himself.
I'm gonna do it. I can do.
Come on. But you know what I thought was almost as impressive was when they came back out for the Luchasaurus Fuego del Sol match, which I give 3 Chandler Hawkins on the Chandler Hopkins scale. Fuego del Sol got a giant pop.
Too. Yeah.
He got a giant.
Unless it's Ryzen, then he beats him. But whatever.
Yeah. But
I looked up how old Luchasaurus is.
Yeah.
He's 5 years younger than me.
Well, he's in a lot better shape than you.
Oh, I know, but he looks. I thought he was at Christian's age or like Matt Hardy's.
No. I knew he wasn't that old. I've seen.
He looked. I know he's a lot bigger than him, but he looks older. I just figured that people.
I think it's very surprised the mask. So with Fuego del Sol getting this kind of reaction, do they start putting him on Dynamite or Rampage? Maybe Rampage.
I'm not really into that guy, man.
Well, it's all about. I feel like that's all about the vlog and Sammy's vlog and stuff like that. That's all carrying over.
That's
but
what if you like him.
he got a
And I
bigger.
like Sammy enough, but
He got a bigger pop than most of the than some of like the name people who are on Elevation and some of the people on Dynamite. I mean, people were waiting, and then of course he got dropped his neck right onto Luchasaurus's knee and died in 2 moves. Like I said, 3 Chandler Hopkins on the Chandler Hopkins show. Like,
Chandler Hopkins was like, God damn it, I win, Matthew. I can do 20 push-ups.
I need to see visual proof of that before I believe it.
His wife's like, please put the weights down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to your family.
I'm not a loser.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You are the loser.
We just started the downward spiral of Chandler.
Oh, I'm going to keep this up. This is my
Chandler,
gimmick.
We swear this is all
I'm not sorry. Not sorry at all. This is my gimmick from now on. I'm going to single-handedly make the Chandler Hopkins story scale.
He's going to make him happen.
I'm going to make it happen.
Make Hopkins happen.
That's right. Make Hopkins happen. There's a nice Red Velvet versus Julia Hart match. Got some more Varsity Blondes. Came out, worked twice because you got it. When an entrance gets that kind of pop, you do it twice. You get it twice because why not? There's more like the battle of the acrobats, a lot of flying and splits and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, they had a lot of good sequences in this. A lot of like acrobatic sequences.
Worked hard.
Like, they're going back and forth on a lot of moves that were pretty interesting. Yeah. Although every time Red Velvet, by the way, has gotten so much better, and she's so fine. And I never say this because it's weird, because there are a lot of good short wrestlers out there. But every time I see her, I'm kind of just wish she was a little bit taller.
It's not so bad since she's in the women's division, but especially, I mean, she's not like, I mean, if they can have Layla Hirsch being legit Layla Hirsch and
I know,
buying it,
weird. I don't
it's
feel
not
that
so
way
bad.
about Layla Hirsch at all.
I know, not at all. Because
of the
it's
style, I think.
Because of the style that they work a different style.
Yeah.
But definitely there are times when she stands, not against every wrestler on the women's roster, but some of them she stands against them. I'm like, oh, she's so much shorter than I thought she
Right?
was.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Does make Julia Hart look tall? That's pretty. Yeah.
But you look back and you think it was only in, I think, February that they did the Shaquille O'Neal match, and everyone was like, Red Velvet is gonna do that match on TV. Wow. And see how far and now you're just like, nope, I know she can do it. She can 100% do it. Her match is.
She did well that match too.
She did well. No, she did great in that match. I mean,
I'm kind of a dick for saying it, because what's she gonna do? Like, get taller? It's not.
But it was just more like people had been looking at the matches she'd been doing on Dark up to that point and going, really? And now you're just like, no, I don't question it at all. I know she can do it.
That's why you book these matches, so that you believe in them.
But the big match on this episode of Elevation, this is really a key match. And for me, it was probably the second most fun I had with anything outside of Orange Cassidy fighting with Luther to put his hands in his pockets, is Frankie Kazarian versus Baron Black, which just on the paper doesn't sound like much.
I like Baron Black.
I like Baron Black too.
I think he's a very good moveset. I really like his moveset. He does like octopus stretches. He does like exploders. Like I think he's a very solid moveset.
Probably the only thing that's stopping him from getting a bigger place is that there are only so many shows and there's only so much room. And we'll talk about this in a bit. It sounds like the roster is only going to get larger with bigger names. So there may or may not be a space. Who knows? But if they ever do start running a lot of house shows, that's a good space for him. And I like Baron Black. He's right there in that Sean Dean, Lee Johnson, lots of.
I was thinking about Sean Dean because they haven't.
Potential.
Has Sean Dean won a match? Sean Dean's won a match, right?
I feel like he has.
Baron Black has not. I noticed that he's 0-13 or 14 now after this.
But he will.
Yeah.
But he will.
Yeah, if Fuego wins a match eventually, then yeah, of course he's going to win.
Yeah. I mean, and Sean Dean and Lee Johnson both got signed, and I'm sure Baron Black probably will. Actually, Lee Johnson's better than both those guys, but they're all.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lee Johnson actually has a couple of wins. So
he has a couple of wins. He's more of a push, and I mean, he's on Dynamite sometimes, and he is a better wrestler. But they can all do it, and they just need space. It's just hard to find space when you're only doing like 3 hours of TV each week. But more importantly is what happened after. And this is really interesting because it happened in the middle of the show. It's not even a main event or anything. As soon after Frankie Kazarian dispatches Baron Black, who should come running out but Brandon Cutler, who we must remember Frankie Kazarian has put through a table at least twice in the last 2 big Young Bucks.
Doing his best Hopkins impersonation.
Doing his best Hopkins. Oh, this was great. This is maybe the best I have seen Cutler yet, except for the time he sprayed Matt Jackson in the face.
That's all he
No, I mean, his face is so he comes running out with the cold spray, attempting to spray Kazarian, trips, falls
What
down.
is in that spray, man?
I think it's just compressed air. Kazarian does the perfect reaction. He's just sitting there looking just like with disbelief, like, really? This is really what you want to do? Cutler's got this great face of disaster and dread and realizing this isn't going to go well, proceeds to get beat up by Kazarian like he should until suddenly the Good Brothers song music plays and Doc Gallows comes out to pound on Kazarian, quickly setting up for a match on Dynamite. Right. And Frankie Kazarian, the Elite Hunter, versus Doc Gallows of the Elite. And
it's almost like the Labor's Past. I mean, like where he's going to go through every single elite person. That's what.
Well, I mean, that's basically what he has said he plans to do.
That's what the gimmick is, right?
I mean, that is the gimmick.
Hunter, that's where you go with that gimmick.
He blames them rightfully for breaking up SCU and retiring his best friend Christopher Daniels, and he's going to take it out on every single one of them. They took what had been happening on Dynamite the last couple of weeks, put it right into Elevation. Made you not realize it was going to happen, and then it happened. So if you're paying attention, you see all this stuff, and it builds right into a match on Dynamite. It's not just a random. I mean, you can understand it if you've only been watching Dynamite, but it has a lot of stakes on its own, and that's what this should be. Yeah. Now, and of course, this did lead into a match on Dynamite: Frankie Kazarian with Doc Gallows, which of course involved a lot of interference from the Elites. The way it happens. His tag team partner Carl Anderson came out, got in the way, put in a bunch of sneaky blows behind the referee's back, and Doc Gallows got the win against Frankie Kazarian. So he may be the Elite Hunter, but it's not going to be so easy as just having win after win after win after he picks them off. He's going to have to.
So I guess he's got to go against the Good Brothers, right? Pick them off. So it's going to be like Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, have fights with them. Who else is in the Elite? I guess Young Bucks and Kenny, right? That's the only one.
Now, one thing that I know is that this is going to be going. This is a feud that's going to be going back and forth through the Forbidden Door
on Impact.
So Impact had their Slammiversary event this past weekend, this past Saturday, where Kenny Omega defended the Impact Championship against Sami Callihan in a no DQ match. So if you noticed during the Kenny Omega segment on Dynamite this week, he had a big giant bandage across his head. That's because Sami Callihan ran a pizza cutter and a fork over it multiple times, and he was bleeding buckets. Okay. Oh, it was no DQ. I mean, he won the match by putting thumbtacks on his knee pad, giving Sami Callihan a thumbtack V-trigger, filling Sami Callahan's mouth with thumbtacks before punching him in the mouth.
I don't even think I have thumbtacks at home.
And then giving him a one-winged angel into a pile of thumbtacks. They double juiced. They went through tables in the ring. They went through tables on the floor. They did chairs in the ring, chairs on the floor, garbage cans, garbage can lids, forks, pizza cutters, barbed wire.
Yeah,
it was a war, and that's why. And like I said, he had they did the pizza cutter spot. It's going to come up again in this episode of Dynamite. They did the pizza cutter spot on Kenny Omega, so he took that. Like he said, he can do any kind of match. He can do any kind of, and I'm not like a big Sami.
I saw him wrestle adults. Yeah,
that he can do any kind of match. But so they had a full arena of I want to say it was about 500 people. So they actually filled up the Impact Zone, and it wasn't only Kenny Omega. Thunder Rosa made a surprise appearance on Slammiversary. Also, Thunder Rosa. She was the mystery opponent wrestling Deonna Purrazzo for the Impact World Championship, which she lost, Women's Championship, which she lost, but it appears is going to lead directly into the NWA Empower event. Deonna, because right after she lost, Mickie James came out and made a face-to-face with Deonna Purrazzo and said, because Thunder Rosa is going to be on that as well, and said, if you are the best, you need to come to my Empower event, which is going to happen in August, and wrestle against all the other women wrestlers who are going for a shot at the NWA Women's World Title. And so it's going to be Purrazzo versus Melina. Who's
Melina, like from Eminem, like Melina Perez or whatever?
Yeah. For the last for the last year or so, she's been in NWA. In fact, she is. I don't think this is going to last much longer, but she has been Thunder Rosa's manager in NWA.
Oh, I'd like to see her on AEW.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think she's going to make the jump to AEW, but apparently it's going to be Deanna versus Melina at the Empower event, and maybe she's going to go into the tournament. Perazzo has actually been quietly, nobody knows this, doing the Kenny Omega bit. She's been doing it. She's been unbeaten for a year.
I like the little bit I've seen of her.
She has been fighting people from all other promotions, and now she's also going to be on Triple Mania. She went down for the last AAA event and beat one of their wrestlers, and she had an open challenge against the current Reina de Reinas, who is basically the AAA women's champion, and they're going to do a title for title match at Triple Mania as well, because Impact and AAA have a working relationship. So she's also turning into the belt collector, and they had actually a really good match. It was probably my favorite match, but Thunder Rosa can get a great match out of just about any good wrestler, and Deanna Purrazzo is a good wrestler. But one of the side effects, I'm getting off tangent of that, is because they had fans in the building, Impact tapes in advance, tapes blocks of shows in advance, and because they had fans in the building for Slammiversary, they wanted to take advantage of that to tape shows in front of live fans for the first time in a year. So they taped the next several weeks worth of shows. So one thing I do know is that Frankie Kazarian is going to chase the Good Brothers, who also won the Impact Tag Team titles back again at Slammiversary. He is going to chase the Good Brothers back to Impact, interfere with several of their tag team matches until eventually he gets into a tag team match of his own with himself. And I can't remember who he is working with against the Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, as he takes the fight against the Elite all the way to Impact and eventually back. So this wasn't just one small thing. This is a big thing that's going to lead to much bigger things across multiple promotions.
One thing I want to ask you, though, is because this is kind of fascinating to me as a guy who basically just watched it. I mean, I watched the ECW a little bit, when that was around. I watched WWE for most of my life. I didn't even watch the WCW really when it was around. But the fact that it seems like right now there's WWE and everybody else is working else together.
Yeah,
like
has
that always been the case? Has that the territory's always been like that?
No, this is unprecedented.
Okay,
now what you had,
so much synergy, like with who's not the big guy.
Before WWE went national and started kicking everybody out, like the territories worked together. I mean, that's basically what the NWA was. It was an agreement among all the different territories that they would have one world champion that they all agreed to, who would travel from territory to territory to territory. But then beyond that, each territory was a place on its own. So that you had the world champion going from place to place, but then within their own sphere, they just did their own thing. But you also had everybody actually was an independent contractor. So you had wrestlers would move from territory to territory, but they'd still keep the same gimmick wherever they went. So somebody would be one thing at one place for a while, so they moved around, but they did it like they'd have a reason to leave a territory and go to another, and they wouldn't.
They look at McFoley and Cactus Jack
at one. Exactly, and that stayed even to a degree. That happened even once things went national and it was just WCW and WWE. WWE experimented with it a little bit when they were on the ropes. WCW experimented with it some. I mean, that was one of their big things for building up their mid-carders. They did bid working agreements with AAA and with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I mean, that's how Rey Mysterio got into WCW.
Ultimo Dragon also.
Ultimo Dragon. Lots of guys. And La Parka, lots of guys. Then lots of guys from 90s era New Japan as well. I mean, Yuji Nagata, lots of guys. And that was like one of their big differentiators. But they didn't do it between each other. It was one, and part of that was just been WWE's philosophy has always been, we're the only, I mean, that's basically a Vince McMahon thing. We're the only thing that exists. Nothing else exists. So especially once WCW went away, they didn't have any reason to talk about anything else. It's really weird watching. There's like a handful of pay-per-views here and there in the 90s where, because they had like a bit of a working relationship with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, so they actually bring Smoky Mountain guy, and the Smoky Mountain tag team titles were defended on WWE pay-per-views a couple of times, and there was a couple where they actually brought a bunch of AAA guys in. The AAA titles were defended there. They had there's a short period where
I don't count like Ohio Valley because that was like their farm system. Really.
No, that was their farm. That doesn't count. No, but they did like that. They did like a small working relationship with Michinoko Pro that didn't last super long, but long enough for some of the guys from there to come on, but it would be here and there, especially when they were fighting for their lives and they were looking for it. But once they were a monopoly, they're like, nothing exists but us. You shouldn't even be bothered watching. So nobody did anything else. And the handful of indies that would come up, it would be more like the territory system, but they wouldn't do like, nobody had the money or the resources to do big things together. There was no reason for Impact to work with Ring of Honor. There was no reason for Ring of Honor to work with Impact. It really wasn't until the All In show, which was the gestation for All Elite Wrestling, happened that you had all of these guys together in one place, doing stuff together. And then, which was a lot of what people thought All Elite Wrestling was going to be when it started. And it didn't for lots of different reasons beyond having to start themselves. There was some harsh feelings with some of the different partners from All In because they feel.
But it's kind of like that without being that. I mean, it has that in spirit. I think.
But now it very much has that in spirit, and through the Forbidden Door, it has leached over into lots of other sister acts as well. Not all of them. Ring of Honor is still very much a thing to itself. CMLL is still very much a thing to itself. But when we had a New Japan title, and we'll get to it, defended in the main event of All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah.
You have All Elite guys going on to New Japan shows, All Elite guys going on to Impact, back and forth at Impact. Kenny Omega is the champion of both shows. On the Impact show, you got New Japan guys on the Impact show. I know I mentioned this last time.
NWA and Impact now also.
NWA, Impact,
collaborating on that side.
The NWA Women's World Championship has been defended multiple times on AEW. I will be amazed if some AEW women don't make up some part of the Empower pay-per-view that NWA is putting on. I mean, Cody was briefly the NWA World Champion. He won it at All In and was it for several months until the NWA 70th anniversary event.
Like Father Like Son. Wasn't Dusty the NWA for a while?
Yeah, he had a series of great matches with Nick Aldis.
That's right.
They've got a and one of the big ending of that Slammiversary event was in fact Switchblade Jay White coming out onto the Impact stage to have a face down with Kenny Omega about, are they all in Bullet Club together? Are they or are they two separate factions? Kenny Omega was throwing up the Too Sweet sign and trying to get Switchblade to go into it. They've been going back and forth on Twitter for months and months and months. This is the first time they've been in the same place. So, in New Japan allowing their top heel to be face to face with Kenny Omega, who, they broke up with harshly when All Elite Wrestling founded, and do it on an Impact stage. It's just incredible. And Impact actually, they were advertising for their next big show, Bound for Glory, and they advertised it throwing up logos from they threw up the Impact logo, the New Japan logo, the AEW logo, the AAA logo, the NWA logos. They're like, all of these are going to be in one place when we're live from Las Vegas in November. So it's like the Forbidden, it's happening in multiple different, and it's really seems to have come about. It really cracked open with a little bit of the New Japan stuff and NWA stuff they started, and then of course the big Impact World Championship stuff they did starting in December that AEW has facilitated, and now it's just everywhere. I mean, you had the Good Brothers on AEW, who they're still not officially signed with, but may as well be regulars on. Walking down.
Yeah, that's like when you talk about Thunder Rosa, I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like they're on TV so much for AEW.
Well, they had them walking down wearing the Impact World Tag Title belts. When Finn Juice had the tag title belts, they were wearing them on New Japan show. So, this has never happened before. Yeah. WWE will never be a part of it because they can't. Cool. But it's never happened before. It's amazing to see. And if you watch, I mean,
it encourages you to be a wrestler, right? Because then you're like, oh man, if I don't make it in WWE, then it's nothing. And it's like, it's not necessarily nothing, because like a lot of these indies are more interconnected now. So I mean, even like the ones that don't have TV promotions, you're still hearing about them. Even when they were casually mentioning some of the awesome promotions, the Texas promotions when they were doing the shows this time. I mean, at least there's a network there, with a lot of these independent wrestlers, which is good because it generates interest in actually being a wrestler.
And it's good for the wrestling fans because you start getting into all this stuff and I'm watching a lot
more options.
Now. Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to keep it up, but there's I've been watching Impact since January, and I just don't know if I can keep that up. But it's just like what we talk about here on AER. You get all the pieces together, and it makes one giant whole. You can watch the individual pieces independently, and it makes some level of sense, but you watch it all together.
There's a deeper level of context you get from
this. For instance, John Moxley has been ever since April or May. He actually did a face-to-face confrontation with Nick Gage at a GCW show and has challenged
So
him
here's a good thing.
for that. Well,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
break
who the
into
hell
this.
Nick Gage is.
All right, I'll tell you. So he challenged him for the GCW World Championship. And this is a perfect lead into the opener of Dynamite, which was the first Labor of Jericho. And I love that they labeled it Labor of Jericho in the titles.
But I think
He
they're
wrestled
using the
a chair
spelling.
match.
The U. That's
They
that's
are.
kind of throwing me
They're
off.
using the European spelling. But well, it's because he's Canadian. But he
Yeah.
wrestled against Sean Spears in a match where only Spears could use a chair because it's the chair,
right.
which is a very good match. I think it's my second favorite. I still think the first Fighter Fest match with the first All Out match with Sean Spears and Cody was probably Sean's best match. But this was good. This was a very good
Kind of
match.
dragged on a little longer than I
Little
like. I think. Yeah.
But then it ended with obviously Jericho won and MJF came out. We've all been assuming that he was going to have to go through every member of the Pinnacle one by one, and MJF was like, nope, that's not true. We're going to do like you did when you brought out Jeff Cobb to fight Moxley. We're going to send out a rogue agent, and he brought out Nick Gage. And the idea that Nick Gage is on a national TV show in front of a million people.
I was like, Nick Cage? I was like,
so Nick Gage is one of the founders of Game Changer Wrestling. He is very, it's not my cup of tea, but I know he is. He is one of the
I looked him up. He's like a hardcore dude, right? Like
he is one of the names in deathmatch. Right? He is one of the names. So he's currently the GCW World Champion. And he is like any type of weird hardcore match. That's his specialty. It's all he really does. But like he and Moxley go way back. So obviously Moxley's challenging him and has brought him a little bit into the AEW fold because Moxley's challenged him for the title. And so now he's coming back right into Moxley's backyard to work for MJF and wrestle, and is going to wrestle a no DQ match against Chris Jericho on national
forks
television.
and pizza cutters.
Well, I mean, he actually literally did bring out a pizza cutter on stage to show it off. I'm like, well, that's apropos versus what's been happening. But
so ECW started that.
No, he actually did have a match, and everything they said about him was true. He actually did when he was.
I read that. Yeah, no,
he actually did rob a bank with no match.
2011 2016.
Yeah,
second degree burglary for a bank.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then he got out and got into wrestling to clean up his life. He actually did have a death match,
but he was in wrestling before that.
Yep. Well, he got cut in a death match. He lost so much blood they had to fly him to the hospital. And when he woke back up after being clinically dead, he wanted to go back and finish his match. He had a very, very controversial match with David Arquette, because David on the indie scene where he because of course his matches all involve hitting people with light tubes and panes of glass and all kinds of stuff. And like he and Joey Janela have wrestled a bunch of times. He hit there's a very controversial match with David Arquette where he hit him with a light tube and actually almost cut open his jugular because it hit him in the wrong space and scratched him so bad across the neck.
Not so much here, right around here.
Yeah, Arquette got really mad and it broke down into a shoot fight and with him holding onto his neck and blood going everywhere. It's crazy, terrible stuff. That's why I don't watch death matches. But this is the background of Nick Gage.
I'm not one of those guys. I mean, and we saw some bloody matches, I think, this week. But it's like the blood thing doesn't. I'm not that into color. Personally, like especially
with the right match,
that's a little gross to me. Thank God I never ended up being a doctor like my parents wanted. But I mean, like there can be too much blood in the match, in my opinion.
With the right match and use the right amount and not done that often.
Gratuitously,
gratuitously. I think it's perfect.
Like an anime
it was perfect for that Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match.
Right, that's what I was thinking. That was right on the level. Like if they did more than that, I would have been like too much. But it was just at the threshold for me.
It's what made the classic Stone Cold Bret Hart match.
Right,
but you do it all the time, and it's a bit
loses its luster. Yeah.
So we'll see, and they did have quite a bit because this match.
You think it's gonna be a good match?
DQ match.
With him and Nick Gage?
Nick Gage has been said to be able to develop like super intense relationships with audiences very, very quickly. So it could be, or it could be a disaster. We'll see. And obviously, the show all ended before its main event with Jericho
Charlotte.
responding by announcing that he was bringing out to face this. He's bringing out his New Japan gimmick, the Painmaker, because that's how he wrestles when he's in New Japan with the face
I've seen
paint
the
and
shirts for
everything.
him. They're actually pretty sweet. I mean, they're in Japanese, so I had to get my friend's girlfriend to read them for me. But like, no, I've seen them. It seems like a cool character. So I'm curious what he does there.
Well, he's actually done it once before in AEW when he wrestled the first time he wrestled Darby, but not since then. And that's been
that makes sense. Yeah.
But mainly to give him some grief. Well, we also forgot to mention at the end of the Kazarian Dot Gallows match, he was getting beat on by all of the elites. So of course, Hangman Page came running out to make the save. Had some like a hilarious back and forth with Kenny Omega, who's trying to say the hunter has become the hunted and appeared to forget.
What was that? Was that on purpose? Because
I'm certain. I'm 100%. No. I'm 100% certain that was on purpose because Callis was reminding him while he was talking. So I think it was just part of that classic.
That he's dumb too. Like
it was just. I think it was just classic Kenny Omega goofiness. He's like, I'm gonna say something super goofy and cliched, and I'm gonna make it even goofier and over by being
like Paul White's commentary. I get it.
Yes, exactly like that. Those are one-to-one correlations you have made there.
Like saying a rock in a hard place isn't a great saying. It's just a normal saying that doesn't add color.
He's been getting better. I mean, he's never done it before. He is getting better. I'm very interested to see what Mark Henry's like on commentary.
Oh gosh, yeah,
that will be interesting.
But yeah, so then Hangman was out there, right? So they did their old tete-a-tete thing with they go at each other. Then of course Hangman's the one that gets beat up, and then who comes out to save Hangman?
Dark Order.
Right. And this is what I'm saying. Silver looks ring ready.
Well, he gave somebody a bump. He did a move. I mean, they're building to the first part of this will obviously be the 5-man, which he's got to be in. And then
right? Is that confirmed yet that he's in that?
No, they haven't confirmed.
It's sort of graphic, but I didn't notice if he was.
I didn't notice. Well, they put like all the Dark Order in it, but they'll have to pick 5. But it has to be. He has to be in it. There's no reason to do it.
I'm excited for that. Yeah, because that's the best thing about that thing to me. It's like, whoa, he's in the ring and he's doing shit. Look at him.
Well, if they go through that, that means they win. They've confirmed tag title shot and world championship shot. Which version of Dark Order gets the tag title shot? Is it Uno and Stu Grayson, who are better in the ring, or Silver and Reynolds, or Silver might be over? Over.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's because. Yeah, that's what I was just excited to see John Silver in there. And I wonder what they're going to do with that program next.
Lots of angles. I mean, it felt like there was there was a lot of stuff happening in the ring, and we had 2 title defenses on this show, but there was lots of stuff happening outside the ring. So we also had Andrade, who last week called out Death Triangle, comes back to the ring. Introduces
and Pac is back with Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, first he introduces his new manager, Chavo Guerrero, which everything I hear is this is a replacement for Vicky Guerrero. They heard that the idea of Vicky being too many managers is too much. So
this is a right way to go at it.
They're changing it. Perfect. Chavo's great. From what I have heard, I have no idea how accurate this is. That the original plan for a long time was they were going to keep him with Thea Trinidad, and it was going to be that same act as in WWE, and then she went back to WWE, so they had to do like a last-minute replacement.
Okay, but Chavo worked very well in this role. I thought the promo was interesting because it wasn't super heelish in my opinion of what Andrade was saying.
Well, because
Andrade comes out, and he's basically like, "Look, I just want to make you better. Maybe I should, because you should have gold around your waist," which a lot of people agree that Pac should have gold around his waist, But he still was like, well, maybe I should be your boss.
Well, he's not talking to Pac, though, is he? I feel like he's only talking to Phoenix and Pentagon. Because the big thing, like you said, the full Death Triangle came out. Pac is back. He's worked out his visa issues. So he's able to have his, or depending on what you're listening, kayfabe, he got over his beating at the hands of the Young Bucks. And now he's back, and he had a face-off. He had a face-off with Andrade. It was like, why is our name in your mouth? You don't want any of this. Had a very good Pac the Bastard promo, and basically Andrade is like, Phoenix, Pentagon, why are you wasting time with Pac? You should be with me. I'm a star. Look at me. I'm a star, and he is.
Oh, so he was trying to pull them away from Pac.
That is what my feeling was.
Okay. Also, by the way, there's something else I noticed because there was between all Penta stuff and
Alex Abrahantes got to do Penta says
in Spanish. There was a lot of Spanish stuff going on.
Yeah.
But one funny thing I noticed, usually when you translate for someone, right, they usually say something a little fancier and you kind of dumb it down for your translation.
Mm-hmm.
This was the opposite. Because what would happen is that like Penta would say something very basic, but then when Alex would go on there, he actually embellished what he was saying like a lot more.
I suspect
Penta didn't say all that, man. Like, but okay, like
I suspect
kind of flowered it up a lot. But that's not the typical dynamic between interpreter and like the speaker. So
I think this may be first, it may be controversial. I suspect that might be because Alex Abrahantes is a better promo than Pentagon.
I mean, he's over when he's like, Penta says.
As soon as he said that, that crowd went ape.
But it's still not on the level of, and this is the thing I meant to say at the end of the Dark Order thing. There's nothing more over than AEW right now than cowboy shit.
Nope. People had signs, they were yelling.
The chant that you say at AEW, that's it.
No,
it's cowboy shit. Nothing more over than cowboy shit.
This will be the most anticipated match on All Out. Will be Hangman Page versus Omega. And
I'm just saying that chant is the most over chant. I'm not even talking about the match or anything. That chant itself.
But it's over. It's over because it's a good saying. It's a good catchphrase. And 2 years. He debuted that in like November or October of 2019.
Yeah, one of the first things he said on TV, basically.
Yeah, it was back when he was feuding with Pac. Anybody remember that feud? But
barely do except for the cowboy shit.
That's right. But it's also only over because it's him, and it's over because.
Oh yeah, I mean the original one came out of a very passionate place, you know, that type of thing. But it's just funny that people just love fucking saying that. I mean that's just gets the crowd going.
It's perfect for him. It says it lines him up perfectly. I need to have a T-shirt that says that. I'm sure they do.
I'm sure they have one. They've got to have.
They've got to.
Probably like the emoji poop or whatever, right?
Yeah, probably.
The cowboy.
Well, I mean, that's what the signs were, so I assume something like that.
But
I tell you what, I am super excited to see Andrade versus Death Triangle. If it's one-on-one, he goes through each one of them one at a time in 3 different
matches. That's what I'm wondering. Is he going to get a tag partner and start going against them?
I don't think so. He shouldn't.
I think he should go one on all of them.
I think the best version of this would be if he goes one-on-one with each one.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, they have the talent to showcase. You know, why mold it up with anybody else?
Yeah. I mean, Pentagon's going back and forth with Eddie Kingston and the rest of Death Triangle.
I've been putting in the work, man. I mean, it would help if Finish could say, not injury free, but.
And you want to talk about what's different from other, you had a long promo segment that was, and because it's live, they couldn't do subtitles, so it's half and half English and Spanish. They would never do that on WWE. I mean, they basically
but I don't know. It's such a great idea, and even though, like I said, you're fluent and everything, but Andrade's English does need a little bit of work.
Well, that's what Shaw.
It's a little bit smoother on the mic. He could use a little rough and smooth.
I thought it was fine, but obviously that's what Shaw.
He stalled a little bit when he was talking a little bit.
I think that's what he does.
I mean, I knew that I'm speaking English, sure, but I'm not paid that much, right? So, all right. Josh, you haven't paid me anything for this show, actually.
You're definitely not paid.
Well, you're getting that level of work.
Truer words were never spoken. But I thought his stuff was fine, but that's also, I mean, that's what Shaw was there for, so that when he's
right, exactly.
Which we haven't had to see that sort of thing because they've been doing pre-records at Jacksonville until now. But now he's in live. They need someone like Shaw who can.
I'm surprised they're back to Jacksonville so soon.
Well, because they do like it's gonna be their last time. Usually they're not because they're in.
They forgot some stuff.
No, like it was gonna be like one of their standard things was they would be in Jacksonville twice a year every year. Once for Fight for the Fallen in July and once on New Year's Eve for the New Year's Eve show. Like they want those to always be at Daly's place, but they're supposed to be the only times you go to Daly's place. So they're going back there one time right before Rampage starts, just as part of their tradition, even though they've been there for like 2 years, but then they won't be back there for like 6 months.
The thing that also I'm wondering about all these, because they're marketing what next week at Charlotte, it's called Fight for the Fallen. It seems like, but to me, in my mind, I was thinking about today when I was watching, is like, what if they said, hey, like every like what is it? Every July 19th or whatever, we're in this city. Like every year, you have the same show in the same city.
Well, they're not going to do that all the time because there's too many cities.
And are they
that wanna
trying to
hit.
do that though? Because
They are doing
the
it-
market every show differently. That's a lot of marketing, man.
Well, they're doing it for certain very specific things. Like they're going to be at Daly's Place for probably for Fight the
Homecoming.
Fallen every year. They'll be at Daly's. They're calling it Homecoming this year because they just didn't work out. But usually, it
No,
would be
Daly's,
Fight for
no,
the
Home
Fallen.
Fight for the Falls in Charlotte. It's not
Right. Right. Normally, it would be Daly's Place, and like next year, it will probably be Daly's Place. They will do like New Year's Bash at Daly's Place every year because that's how they want to do it.
Yeah, and then like
They
what?
will-
Double or Nothing in Vegas
and All Out in Chicago
or whatever.
No, All Out will always
Out in
be in
Chicago.
Chicago. They want to make those like specific.
Like the
to those
pay-per-views,
cities.
but I'm talking about
Yeah.
these are like regular TV shows. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. The way they're marketing.
Right. There's like a handful of regular TV shows. They'll and those will probably
Like is
just-
Spider Fest next year going to be in Austin and Dallas again?
No, it'll be somewhere, but it won't be in Austin and Dallas. Like the
Okay.
original Fighter Fest was in.
But is it going to be around the same time of year? Like
yeah,
is that what
it'll
it's
always
doing?
be. So
I'm
the
trying
first
to
year,
market this.
so in 2019 they had All Out. They had Double or Nothing in May, and they had All Out in August, and then TV starting in October. And they knew that they weren't going to have any pay-per-views or TV until then, but they didn't want people to forget about them. So they did 2 free pay-per-views in between Double or Nothing and All Out. They did Fighter Fest in June, which was originally built entirely around the idea of mocking the Fire Fest fiasco.
Right. Yeah. Which is I'm like that's an
And,
interesting flex, but
It was I want to say it was in California, but I'm not sure where in California. It was tied into like a gaming convention that Kenny's part of. And then they did Fight for the Fallen in July from Daly's Place. First time we ever saw Daly's Place. And they did it as a charity show for Wounded Warriors, which is what it's supposed to be, which is why it's called Fight for the Fallen. And so they did that in June and July. So they always want to do those in summer. And they did them last year, all from Daly's Place, of course, but they did them last year.
But are they going to get to a
wanted-
level where it's just like, hey, it's just there's no marketing. This show is not called anything. It's just, hey, we're in Houston this week. That's
Well,
how
yeah,
stuff.
like the Houston show will
Welcome
probably
to
just be-
Dynamite. That's it.
Most of them are. The Houston show will probably just be the Houston show. Like they do that sometimes
We
when
never
they're
get-
especially when they're really pushing stuff. Like, and they did that a little bit last year, but not a lot. Like they do it for New Year's Bash. They'll probably do that every year. They do it for like the cruise. They'll do that every year. They did Road Rager because it was the first one on the road and they wanted to push
Right.
it.
That's
Like
that's
they're going to do Fighter Fest, and they've said this now. They're going to do Fighter Fest as a night 1 and night 2 named event with pay-per-view quality matches
Nice.
around this time every year. They're going to do the same with Fight for the Fallen right after as a one night.
I wouldn't
thing.
call these matches paper. I mean, especially
It is.
I think with paper.
You had you got a women's
You
world
had Wheeler
title
Utah
match.
versus Darby Allin. You already talked
Well, I
about
mean,
this.
but you've got you had the coffin match. You had you've got the women's title match, the IWGP
Sure, no, they've been,
match.
but like I'm just saying, from especially compared to the last
I think some of it sort of depends on where the stories are and what they can get together in time. Like if you remember last year's Fighter Fest, they did was the Brian Cage championship match against John Moxley. You had a women's championship match. You had a tag team championship match against the Best Friends, I think. So you had like a bunch of you actually like all the titles defended, and it was like a pay-per-view card. This one, they're trying to get there. It's not quite, but I mean, both of these nights were really, really good, even if not every title was on the line, because they can't put the world title on the line until All Out. And they did the tag team title at Road Rager in order to make Road Rager like a big event. So they don't want to do it against the best because they protect their freaking titles, which shouldn't be
With, good booking.
shouldn't be
So there you
like
go.
some sort of astounding thing, but is, believe it or not. I thought these were some solid shows. You had another, yes, you did. You had Darby Allin versus Wheeler Yuta.
But Utah's getting a big push, man. And
Well,
here's the
they've
thing, I
tied-
like
it
him.
feels
He's
like-
work enough. But if
Yeah.
you're gonna have him replace Trent, make him talk. Make me like him. Like
They do need to
something
make him
like that.
talk.
Give him a promo, something like that.
They do
Instead
need
of
to
just
make
putting
him
him in
talk.
all these high level matches.
And he can talk. He can work, but he can also talk. But they do.
I
need
know.
to
Just
make
prove
him
that
talk.
to me. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
also, it seemed like this match didn't matter who was in it, because this match existed for one thing, which was Sting versus Orange
The best
Cassidy.
Sting segment ever.
This was maybe the best Sting segment ever. This is one of the best Orange Cassidy. And you know what? Even if this only existed just for that, it was 100% worth it. I was laughing. So when he beat his chest with the weak chest beat, I was laughing so hard. Anyone who says
And
that
Darby's
this,
like,
and he's literally standing there going, "What are you doing? I'm in a match. I'm losing." And the guy rolls him up. Perfect. It was perfect. Every
Really
bit of this
well
was
done.
perfect.
They really, because I was like, okay, good. What is Sting gonna like hurt Orange Cassidy, or like, you know, dude, that doesn't be very not Sting like at this moment. But then I was like, oh shit, Sting is doing it. He's doing the lazy strikes. He did the Clash of Titans at the middle and everything, and
it was great. It reminded me of the Orange Cassidy Pac match where when he started doing it, Pac did it back to him before he then kicked him in the face. Sting being a baby.
No, Pac was doing it kind of like sarcastically, where like Sting was just like, fuck it.
Fuck it. Why not? Why not? We're in Dallas. Why not? I'll play your game. We're all baby faces here. Anyone who says that's not pro wrestling or that's an insult to pro wrestling,
I probably hated that sketch.
Well, I haven't heard it's not his review hasn't dropped, but I'm sure he's going to say, because every time he sees one of these
that's
things,
not
like,
wrestling.
He's going to say like, well, I've lost all respect for Sting and he's turned his back on wrestling. I can't believe it. Or another friend I have to never talk to again. And I'm like, well, that's your loss, man. This was professional wrestling. If you say it wasn't, you don't know what professional wrestling is. I don't know what you're talking about.
That was such a great spot, though. I was just laughing my ass off. I was like, you know what? This is a good direction. I don't know where they're going with this. If they'll ever revisit it again, I appreciate it for what it was in that magical 5 minutes last night.
And I don't know, just looking at the entrances and this whole bit, if there was any match or anything this night where there was, because you had Orange Cassidy who was super over with this crowd, and Darby Allin was super over this crowd. I don't know if there was anything in ring where everybody involved was more over than in this one. And of course, it ended with a bit of a schmoz. Darby won, which he should have. But then Blade comes running out of the ring to punch Orange with the brass knuckles to set up their match, which is happening later.
That brass knuckles thing is, I guess, Blade's just whole thing now.
Well, it's only existed with that.
It's like when Sean Spears had the glove,
like the Orange Cassidy match, but it's been fairly recent with all the best friend stuff. But then
the bunkhouse match or whatever.
I don't think he had it at the bunkhouse match. I think I can only remember it showing up since they've had this feud with best friends. I don't remember it showing up until then, but maybe I'm wrong. It seems fairly recent. It's been like a thing Bunny's been doing since she's been back with Blade, and especially since Blade's been wrestling solo while Butcher is still.
That was a good match. I mean, Blade pulled off some impressive moves. I remember he hit the corkscrew tombstone, and I was like,
good.
What the hell is that?
Good. They really went for it. I mean, this crowd.
But I don't know. The match just didn't I guess because
it was fine.
There wasn't a lot of Cassidy antics in it. So
it was more. Well, you've had all the Cassidy antics have been into the lead up, but you know what? The crowd finally got what they've been asking for.
There can be enough. Like there's a threshold on that. Okay.
It may not be the Mimosa Mayhem match, but you know you had you had some stuff. I love the Mimosa Mayhem match. You want to talk about Cassidy antics, but you know what? These crowds have been dying for an actual Orange Cassidy solo match. They were during that mixed tag. They finally got it, and you had all the Orange Cassidy stuff, and then he ends with an orange punch with the stolen brass knucks, lays Butcher out, lays Blade out. What better? Chris Statlander gets her revenge on Bunny. What more could you ask for? You know,
right. I mean, I don't think it's
fine because it wasn't like great.
Maybe they'll have the legs that Factory with the family has. Let's see.
I mean, it wasn't.
Oh yeah, you forgot to mention that they keep showing QT on TV.
I was going to see if you remember that or not. He didn't. I was wondering if he was going to pour protein. I was wondering if he was going to pour protein shake on Alex Marvez, but apparently he's going to be out in the ring.
It's so hard to not be boring, but it's just like it's like he thinks being louder makes him less boring, but it's boring on a bigger level when he does that.
Maybe it wouldn't be so obvious if he wasn't always wearing bowling shirts.
What the fuck is with the bowling shirt? You look like someone's dad that you just like, oh, I dropped my kid off. I'm sorry. I'm here to pick him up. That's what he looks like.
I don't get it. I think he's going for like a mob boss look or something, but then he should be wearing a tracksuit.
Then do a tracksuit, for fuck's sake.
Tracksuit. Yeah.
We've all seen Do a tracksuit.
I don't get it, but he's gonna be back. He's back this week. They're never gonna let him off TV, and he's back next week to make his apology to Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, because we've all been waiting for that. We're like, oh my god, is Tony so mad that he needs this?
Well, I'm assuming that this will set up his next feud, and we'll see whoever comes into the ring.
Can't Malachi Black kick in the face too? Just everybody in that, just go after both factory and family. Just everybody in the face.
Well, I think
you seem great, but you associate with these people.
My guess is now that Cody's on to Malachi Black, which I can't wait. I can't wait for that. They're gonna that it's now time for the factory to have a feud with someone else. Maybe it's Jungle Boy and Jurassic Express.
Oh, sorry for whoever's in them. They're going to carry that feud so much. At least it's good. Maybe it should go to somebody who needs to prove themselves, like a power. No, but he's a heel. I was gonna say like Hobbs or somebody who maybe needs more TV time, that type of thing. But don't put an established person in there. Don't like Cody it up with that.
Who's a babyface group who's not in the feud?
Best friends? That's a good question.
Assuming that this is the wrap up. Assuming this is the blow off. This week was the blow off of the Butcher. Maybe it's best friends. Who will come out during the apology? That will be interesting.
Oh God! But it's like, do I even want to wish that for best friends? It's like, then you have to go hear QT talk. Like, oh.
But also, there was maybe Kip Sabian will come out. He'll have been he was
no Miro, by the way.
No, there was Miro. There was a Miro.
There was a segment. He's really trying to get this Redeemer thing over.
You know what? I didn't notice anything he said. I didn't hear it because all I could pay attention to was he was wearing a Bloodsport jacket. And all I could think during when he says, please God, let one of his opponents be Jean-Claude Van Damme, because that would be fantastic. And they do it.
Yeah, where's Ray Jackson doing these days?
Put him in a Kumite. They need to put him in the raised platform Kumite. Get Bolo Young out here. Have the drummers. I want Bloodsport with Miro.
Where's this tree dude from Africa? That's who I want.
I want it now. They need to do a Kumite on AEW. AEW needs to do that.
Then people will be like, why are they putting Street Fighter on AEW? Like, I get what you're saying, but there's a succession of properties. Bloodsport kind of started this whole thing. Which is not, and Bloodsport, by the way, might have been a whole lie, but it still was a cool movie.
Still a cool movie. Don't care if it was a lie.
Yeah, I had a whole birthday party centered around, do you want to come to my house and watch Bloodsport on every
I am a professional, yes, the answer is yes. I'm a professional film critic. I say what movies are good and bad for a living. I've watched many thousands of movies, and I will tell you objectively, Bloodsport is a great movie.
I agree. You get both thumbs up for me.
That's right.
You get 10 Chandler Hopkins body slams for me.
That's right. That is worth it, Chandler Hopkins. So you know what? Anytime anybody does a promo where they're wearing a Bloodsport jacket, thumbs up. Good promo. I don't care what you said. Which also had to come across the Britt Baker Nyla Rose championship match. I know we were talking last week. Maybe this should main event. Well, we were talking in the last episode. You know, it felt like this should main event, not necessarily the IWGP. But now having watched this, I'm like, no, they made the right decision. This was in the right spot. I just didn't feel like they were on the same page. It was, I mean, it is. They had to do it. Well, they've made a story point of, and it's a true story point that. Britt Baker's never beaten Nyla Rose before, and Nyla Rose was Britt Baker's most recent loss, who wasn't Thunder Rosa, which technically doesn't count.
You should have played that up more.
They played it up in all of the segments that in promos they've been doing ahead of it. They just didn't put any of those on Dynamite. They're all on the YouTube channel, so you can go see them. They talked about it on the YouTube channel, so we know about them because we watch.
But not even on like Darker Elevation.
No, well, they do these things. They do these 15-minute YouTube bits every Monday called Road to.
You can't get people to watch that.
Hey, this is AER. We watch all of it.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying. Well, it's a good thing that you did.
Every so often they'll take bits and pieces of these and put them onto Dynamite. I just think like these last two episodes have been so packed there was no room for it, which is too bad because they were pretty good. But
my thing with this match was, because. There's been
the last maybe like 5 minutes of it, 3 minutes of it were pretty good, but it took a long time to get there.
The thing that because there's been so many matches on AEW where I know where the booking's going. Like, you know who's going to win. I mean, a very good example of this was the three-way with Pac and Kenny and Orange Cassidy at the pay-per-view. We all knew Kenny was going to win, but my God, did they make me believe he was going to lose during that match?
Yeah.
I did not feel that way at all during this.
I
never felt like, oh my God, there's that moment that like Britt might actually lose this. Like, no.
I only did briefly after the first Beast Bomb because no one has ever kicked out of the Beast Bomb before. And she landed that. And I'm like, are they actually, they're not actually going to do it. Are they going to do it? Or are they going to have the first person kick out the Beast Bomb? And then they had, no, that was after that was actually after the Eddie Guerrero spot. That was after.
That's right. I forgot about the Eddie Guerrero spot. That was
we had to do that with Vicky Guerrero right there, and then Vicky was like, "Nope, I see what you're doing. I've seen this before. I know
the cheating going back and forth. That was good. That was good. That was actually good.
And you know, this was actually 2 times, and they don't ever do this on Dynamite on AEW at all. They had 2 finishers that have always been 100% finishers get kicked out of. Because Jericho kicked out of the C4, which no one has ever kicked out.
I was disappointed about that. Yeah, and there goes the C4, and of course, and now I'm not a big fan of the Judas.
Well, I don't think they're going to have people kick out of it super often, but I mean, it's one of the things I really like about AEW. They protect their finishers.
Yeah, sometimes to a ridiculous degree, but sometimes,
you know, well, I mean, and so they make the idea being that when someone kicks out of them, it's big. That it's really big, and you know, it should be big that Britt Baker is the first and so far only person to kick out of the Beast Bomb. But for a second there, I was like, I thought that because no one ever kicks out of it, they wouldn't even land it. That she'd keep trying to set it up and it would transition to something else. And when she actually landed, I was like, are they going to have her kick out of it? Because they never do that. And then she did. I'm like, okay.
I hope it's not a feud, though. I hope she moves on to something else.
No, it should be moving on, especially now that, I mean,
it was a title match, right? So yeah.
I guess it depends on what you want to set up for All Out. Now that I feel like it can't be a coincidence that they announced right afterwards, the day afterwards, that Thunder Rosa has signed.
Lining up little coincidence. It's good. Yeah.
That's the perfect next feud, and but they also can't take the title off of Britt Baker this early. She should have this thing for like
at least she got to make it to Pittsburgh, right? So yeah.
Well, I just mean I figure she should have it through All Out. I
think if she had it, should have it. You think that would have it for a year?
Well, I mean, she should at least have it to next year. I mean, by the time you start getting to Revolution, and especially by the time you get to Double or Nothing next year, you should start thinking, well, now it is very likely she should lose it, but it shouldn't be.
And she's still in good health and everything too. Yeah,
that's it. As long as she's not.
That's always a factor,
right? And because the other thing is, I mean, outside of Thunder Rosa, who's the baby face that can beat her, unless she turns baby face. I mean, that's the other thing because she got a giant baby face welcome here.
He's going to get those reactions, man. People like her.
She was treated like the baby face through this entire match, which she basically was. But so I mean, the other thing is.
She was cheating and everything, right? So she was healing it, but people liked it. That's the thing. It was like Eddie. It's funny that we said Guerrero because it was just like when Eddie did this shit.
So the other thing is that she keeps getting these babyface pops. Do they turn her babyface while she has the belt and lose to a heel?
But that's so weird because her character works better as a bitch than like as a nice person. So it's like she could be just a bitch and someone you cheer for. I mean, I think this is basically what's going to happen.
I mean, she could be an anti-hero. Look. We knew I mean, they were trying to do that with Jericho for like the last 6 months, where he was still technically a heel, but everybody was singing his song whenever he came out.
Right.
This can't last. I mean, it can't. He has to switch at some point.
It'd be like the Rock would be like, hey, this ain't sing along with the champ. That's
exactly. But after seeing this, it was very clear you had to have that this was not going to be the ender. It had to have the IWGP Championship match. And it lived up to its billing. Pizza cutters, forks, chairs, tables covered in barbed wire, chairs covered in barbed wire. And you talk about things where you think you know how it's going to go. I was like, no, John Moxley's going to retain. They're not going to give Lance Archer a big win. They're not going to switch another company's belt on their TV. And I was wrong about all of those things. Lance Archer.
The match, because when I was watching it, I thought it was a little slow. I was like, okay, typical death match, people bring around weapons, doing spots, blah, blah, blah. But then it got kind of dramatic towards the end. Like it got.
And then they put 2 chairs back to back, and they backslammed John Moxley on those chairs. I'm like, how are you still walking?
Back, standing up like this, right? Which isn't like there's not much surface area. It's just like a hard piece of metal going up like this, and you're just one point of contact on your back like that. It looked like that sucked.
How is he not paralyzed? And he got choke slammed.
Like they must have gone to that spot, hit him in the right spot, that type of thing. Got some warm heat before to make it suck. I don't know. It's just that would put me out. I mean, like I'm done for the rest of the match.
And then he wrestled for like 5 more minutes.
Like, holy shit, he did that on Moxie. Like Lance has actually caught this match so far.
Well, that was after Moxley, and they went double juice on this match. That was actually after Moxley gave him a paradigm shift on the floor, after they ripped up all of the carpeting to do it right onto the cement. Now it was very clear, which should be, that he protected him all the way down. But still, you're doing I mean, way back when Ricky Steamboat got severely fucked up when Jake the Snake Roberts gave him a DDT on the cement. So those things can go out of control really fast. So
he's had a lot of accidents. the Randy Steamboat, the ring bell thing, this thing,
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But so this looked very protected, but still, I wouldn't want someone to do that to me.
Yeah, I mean.
So yeah, they did everything, and then choke slam,
for barbed wire table. Barbed wire tables are a thing. I mean,
off
the last
the
time you
apron,
get her off a barbed wire table.
through a barbed wire table that he got stuck
it's a
in.
centerpiece, it's some barbed wire. It goes on the left of the fork.
And that was after him. Well, he couldn't use the fork because he'd been jamming it in his forehead like that.
They went there a Bill the Butcher impersonations with their back and forth fork shit. I'm like, not sanitary, but this is like, that's what's happening right now. And also gross. He bit his wound.
Yes, he
Moxley, did. He like put his mouth on his goddamn wound.
And like,
oh.
My one thing I would say about this is that next week, Nick Gage has to have a no DQ match with Chris Jericho. And this is the thing. I'm like, how are you going to top that?
Smear each other's blood at this point. That's what
how are you going to top that?
Because now you got to smear each other's blood, like his ripped head, like in one hand, like. Yeah,
I don't know, but this was crazy main event, and Lance Archer won. We talking about Lance Archer needed a title. He needed a big win.
Bridesmaid, never winning, and that's why
Lance Archer got his big win,
and he won in his hometown,
in
home
his
area,
hometown.
really.
They broke booking rule 101. Have these people never studied booking?
Vince McMahon's.
How can you let a man win the title in his hometown? This cannot be done.
I'm always such a dick policy, because that must be
the one thing
you'd love to do, right?
It's the stupidest idea on earth. Not to beat somebody in their hometown. It's like everyone knows it's stupid. They know it's stupid.
I mean,
they just feel
formulaic. Like he's not gonna. If it's in their hometown, they're just gonna lose. For someone who prides themselves on being spontaneous, like every time they're in their hometown, the guy's gonna lose.
They do it. They do, and I'm quoting other people here, but they do it because they know they can get away with it because they're the only option, because they're a monopoly, and they think everyone else is a dumb mark. So that's just what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying doing it all the time, but it's fun to mix things up, not just every fucking time the face loses, in his hometown.
I don't even know if they remember what happened before.
So here, I mean, well, at least it wasn't really a typical face heel thing going on here. Yeah. I mean, I guess Lance has always just been that guy that beats people up. But like, he threw a fan at. Did you see that?
That was great.
You're talking about Serpentico, like you should throw Serpentico at somebody.
I wonder if that gave them
in the crowd that he threw into him.
I wonder if that gave them the idea. I wonder if that was the Serpentico. No, I didn't think anything else.
No, he had tattoos.
Yeah, they did. They did pick up a fan. They went into the fans, because of course you are. And then he picked some dude up out of his seat and tossed him right at.
Did you notice he's wearing very bright green stuff? And they're like, I wonder if he's being like on purpose, like distinctive, so that he's like, yeah, that's
go for the giant, the big green guy. That's who you want. Get the big.
Because if it was just like the guy in the black shirt, then you'd have a lawsuit on your hands.
Right. That was a great move. Didn't see that coming. And then at the very end, you want to talk about the forbidden door. So they have Hikuleo sitting in the crowd for the entire time. For people who don't watch all the other stuff. So Hikuleo is a New Japan wrestler. He's very young. He's the do you remember?
Haku's son, but that's not Haku though.
Haku,
that's not the Haku.
That's the Haku. So he's the son of Haku. He's the cousin of Roman.
Like Meng the Merciless Haku.
Meng the Merciless, yeah. So
like the toughest fucking badass wrestler ever, Haku.
So Meng has 3 sons. The older 2 are the Guerrillas of Destiny, who wrestle as a tag team in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Hikuleo is the youngest. He's the baby. So this 6'8" giant is the baby of the family. He's fairly new to being a pro wrestler, but obviously he grew up in the business. He was trained by Haku and Bully Ray and Devon Dudley. But yes,
ridiculous.
So he's the son. He is the youngest son of Haku. He's a cousin of Roman Reigns. So yeah, he's that whole group. He's been wrestling in New Japan Strong out of the LA dojo for a bunch of months. He and Fred Rosser, the former Darren Young of WWE, had a great
Darren Young, the Black John Cena. Yeah,
Black John Cena. Yeah. Well, he's not the Black. How on earth you would get those? No, nowadays he's Mr. No Days Off, the suntan Superman, Fred Rosser. Wrestles for NWA. That's his gimmick. That's his gimmick. He wrestles for NWA and
That sounds-
for New Japan Pro Wrestling. He apparently tried a bunch of times to get a job with AEW, but AEW didn't take him. I don't know why, because his New Japan stuff is great. He had a match. He had a match with Rocky Romero that was great, and he had a match with Brody King that was awesome.
Old school Nexus.
Yeah, very much so. But he had he and Hikuleo did a no DQ Falls Count Anywhere match that went all around the entire arena and out into the loading docks. That was great. So Hikuleo can do. That's who Hikuleo. That's who the man who came up and stepped in Lance Archer, who made Lance Archer look like a small child because he actually was like
And Lance is a tall dude, man. So
yeah. That's who the youngest son of Haku. If you guys don't know who Haku, look up Alpha and Sika. Look up Ming the Merciless, MENG.
This guy, crazy
you
hear about
man.
bar fight stories and like people. I don't know. Did he poke someone's eye out, or they poked
That's what
his
they
eye
said.
out someplace?
They said he hit someone so hard his eye popped out of his skull.
That's
the
stories about him are
by the
fucking
nerve.
crazy.
There are
I mean,
some stories.
Wrestling for a large part is scripted, but he's just like one of those legit like guys that just fights, like is a fighter, and you just don't ever want to fuck with him.
So he's sitting there in the Bullet Club shirts, which, so the Good Brothers and the Guerrillas of Destiny were the among the original founders of Bullet Club way back when. Leo is the youngest child, the youngest brother of the he's part of it now. And there's going to be a lot of Bullet Club stuff happening in Impact. Is also part of those tapings I was talking about. Jay White's there for all of them and adding Bullet Club members, and there's a lot of back and forth between Bullet Club and the Elite. So that's a story that everyone's wondering, is that going to spill into Dynamite? Nobody knows.
Oh, the Switchblade story. Such a cool name. Switchblade Jay
Switchblade. Oh, he's probably the best heel in wrestling.
It's a great wrestling name.
He's great. He's a great wrestling name. He's a great heel. He's great in the ring. You got to check out some Switchblade Jay White. If you've never seen Switchblade Jay White matches before, check them out. They are great. But that's Hikuleo. So now we're going to get next week another New Japan Pro Wrestling match. We're going to get Lance Archer defending the IWGP US title against Hikuleo. That should be
Is that on TV? Is that on AEW?
Dynamite. Yes, Dynamite.
Oh shit! So that's in Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah. So that should be a great match. That should be a hoss fight. No Chandler Hopkins in that match. Those dudes are too big, but expect lots of just bashing back and forth over and over again. So that Forbidden Door is wide open, swinging wide open. Can't wait. The Good Brothers are back in New Japan. There's a tag team tournament going on right now in LA. Right. And the Good Brothers are wrestling in that. So they're wrestling in New Japan, Impact, and AEW right now. It's crazy. So check it out. Yeah, and then of course, and this is potentially only the beginning, because we've gone through all of this. These great matches we're on like the hour and a half, so we're running up on time. But we can't not talk about this. The big giant news. So of course, as everyone knows, coming up September.
Oh right.
So they have not mentioned like anything in August after the launch of Rampage. However, in this week's Observer, Dave Meltzer did mention that the 18th is still supposed to be Houston. So I'm assuming it's still Houston. But everyone is basically skipping past that to the first week of September, which is going to be All Out. And then 2 weeks after that, or a week after that, they go to New York for the Newark show at the Prudential
Arthur Ashe Stadium.
No, that's at the Prudential Center. And then a week after that, because that's a pre-pandemic match that has been rescheduled a bunch of times. So they're finally going to do it. And then the week after that is going to be their biggest show ever on TV, the Arthur Ashe Stadium, which right now has apparently about 17,000 tickets sold. So it's going to be the biggest gate they've ever had. They may open up some more. It's possible they may get to like 19,000. It's going to be the largest crowd for a non-WWE show ever since like 1999, bigger than anything. And you'd have to go back to like some big WCW crowds to get bigger. So this is going to be like a pay-per-view level crowd for this TV show. So obviously they want something big to give people and make them lose their shit on the show when there's like 15, 20,000 people shoved into a building. And there are two names in wrestling that would cause 20,000 people to lose their shit spontaneously. Right now, both of them are being bandied around. Nothing has been confirmed, but there are several different unconfirmed reports that Brian Danielson,
has signed.
contract expired with WWE in April. and has been going back and forth with probably lots of different companies for months, and whose main deal is that he wants to be able to work New Japan and CMLL and do some stuff he hasn't been able to do before, has signed with AEW, who will obviously.
That's a rumor, not talked. That he's actually signed.
That he's actually signed.
Like that he has a contract. Like Daniel Bryan is all elite. I mean, they kept the Malachi Black thing under wraps.
Yeah.
It's just that I've heard this before, and it's like
Maybe
Burns.
well, I
mean,
mean,
like, you cried wolf, right? And
people
like,
were
okay,
talking
real
about
this
it.
time?
People were talking about it like from the instant his WWE contract expired that he should totally do this. This should happen. So obviously it's been around, but now people are saying it is a done deal, and they are holding him back to premiere.
If it happens, like yes, dude,
at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And Tony Khan has said something big is going to happen at Arthur Ashe. So everyone's going, this is it. The only thing that could potentially be as big, probably not bigger, but as big, is that there are also reports going around that CM Punk is in talks.
But in talks
with AEW.
Well, what I heard that he's been in talks for months with them.
Yeah.
So that's not like that's to me. That's like okay, like shit or get off the pot. Like the fact that they said that Bryan has signed a contract to me was bigger than them talking to Punk.
It feels
I was like they've been talking to Punk.
If they're going to go through,
like where's the rumor of him signing? That's what I want to hear.
It feels like if they're going to go through with giving him
announce them together.
If they're going to give them hit through, whatever it is they're going to be giving Danielson.
Like Ring of Honor.
So like way back when, there was way back there's an official AEW podcast, the AEW Unrestricted podcast, and
this is the only
the inner workings of the show a lot. So way back when Cody Rhodes is on there, he was actually getting some questions about the pay scale, and he was talking about like they have like a tiered pay scale for what people get depending on how many matches they're guaranteed. He's like, there's tier 1, there's tier 3, it goes up to tier 5, and then there's tier Jericho. So like, you got to figure that Bryan Danielson is getting tier Jericho money.
I'm sure. I mean, yeah,
they're getting to the point.
He's held every belt. I mean, he's a draw. He's a top draw.
If they're getting to the point, and you have to know that a Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson main event for pay-per-view would sell an unimaginable amount of
it's like blood starts running out my ear.
Like you would have to do it immediately. I mean, that would have to be like if he debuts in September.
Yeah, he couldn't like flounder in a mid card.
No,
yeah,
that would have to be like your
no. I mean like Andrade, even Malachi Black, sure, but not Daniel Bryan. No, you come in and you put him in the title picture. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's an immediate pay-per-view, like giant sellout, multiple 100,000 buys.
Yeah, so you want to talk about short wrestlers too? Like he's one guy never been like, oh, I wish he was taller. He works awesome.
Well, it's amazing that he got over in WWE, the place that hates short wrestlers.
Yeah, after so long, after Vince finally said okay, right?
But my point being that if they're going to break out the tier Jericho for another wrestler, then they will break it out for two wrestlers.
Well, you said one side's reporting it. And said like everybody's parroting it, so we work in journalism.
Well, we don't know.
You gotta have multiple. Sources,
you gotta have multiple sources. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nothing is confirmed.
That's like that points my emotions. It's like we've heard this, but then when they're like signed, I'm like, okay, you're fucking with me again when you escalate the language that you're using.
But it's also the first time. Well, it's also not just that the sources are saying sign, also saying like all talks with WWE are definitively off.
Right, like everything's kind of lining up rumor-wise. So we're
exactly.
Like, it's almost a confirmation. Well, then he signed with AEW.
The other thing, and the thing on the CM Punk stuff is that they've been talking about it ever since AEW formed, and everyone has flat out said CM Punk was the very first person Tony Khan ever went to go talk to get.
He also made fun of them.
He's gone back and forth. He's made,
and also Colt Cabana's on the roster.
Yeah. Colt Cabana is not a main event draw in CM Punk.
Yeah, I know. I think probably avoid each other.
And they probably would. Or they'd make.
I hate that happened. I like when they were friends.
Well, who knows what it's like now? But he's made fun of them because he makes fun of everything because that's his gimmick. But also he's come out and said like
make fun of his mixed martial arts career.
One of those losses.
Good job, Phil Brooks.
One of those losses was turned into a no contest, so he's only lost once. But
saving
more
grace.
Importantly, he's made fun of them, but he's also talked very positively about them. And he said multiple things. He said some that you just can't argue. He said like, yeah, this and that, but if they pay, of course I would do it, which is true. So if they pay,
like anybody, right? Yeah.
But he's also said like the thing I'm looking for matches I haven't done. There aren't any of those in WWE, and he did specifically mention that like a match with Kenny Omega,
and you have a lot more creative control.
Creative control. And a match with Kenny Omega, it would be something that would be of great interest. That he's never.
We're just plugging everybody against the Kenny Omega. Like,
well,
what about Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk? Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk.
Well, that would be. Well, I say.
Well,
think of the other thing, because I'm saying, like, well, of course, that's why when you have the best,
back in 2000.
When you have the best wrestler in the world in your company, that's going to be the draw for other wrestlers, because everyone's going to be like, well, I want to do a match with the best wrestler in the world.
Oh, so you're saying if Daniel Bryan's fine, that would be like the kind of impetus for CM Punk to be like, all right.
I think so. If he well, he's also, yeah. I mean, if a match with Kenny Omega isn't quite enough, but he says, like, are you going to get to come in? You're going to get to have the kind of match you want with Kenny Omega, not the one we tell you, and you're going to get to have
not change the booking on you last second, like that type of bullshit. Yeah,
and you're going to get to have the kind of match you want with
no pipe bomb promos needed. Like shit.
Right. Oh, you don't. You know they wouldn't miss it. You know that you get pipe bomb promo part 2. It would just be directed outward, because how could you ignore that?
You like Tony, you and your stupid hair, and like all this stuff. That's kind of what Britt Baker was trying to do the other week.
Pretty much.
But yeah, so that's we'll see. Fingers crossed what happened. They traded the production, could have gone a little smoother. The Malachi Black thing is going off for a stellar start. I'm a little upset that we have to wait a little bit to get to that match.
2 weeks at Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's
homecoming.
She was coming now.
Should be the main event. If there's
or just have him show up and just kick him in the face again. I'll go for that spot again. That's just fun to watch. I don't even hate Cody. It's just fun to watch that guy kick people in the face.
I thought this was a solid, super solid episode of Dynamite. I am so excited for everything that's coming this summer. And CM Punk if Bryan Danielson and CM Punk show up in Dynamite this fall, people will lose their mind.
Back to the American Dragon persona? That'd be kind of cool.
I would assume back to the American Dragon. And All Out takes place in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown. What better?
Right.
Well, the other thing has been, like, nothing has been quite the surprise. Nothing has been quite the surprise as the end of the original Double or Nothing when Jon Moxley walked out at the end of the main event. Everybody's waiting for something like that to happen again. I mean, Malachi Black.
I was kind of surprised by the Malachi Black.
That was a big one. Malachi Black was a big one.
Because I didn't even hear anything about that happening. Yeah, so they kept that. They were very good at keeping that shit under wraps.
They really were. That was a big one. I mean,
a lot of stuff coming up.
Good.
It's good. And the touring thing, I still feel like everybody's like got more juice in them when they're performing in front of different crowds. Like you can see the matches are a little better.
They're
even the squash matches are a little better when you see them.
Everything was great. I don't know, maybe my two favorite moments were both Orange Cassidy moments. So this week,
the steam picks.
It was all great. It was all great. But this crowd was into it. So we'll see if they can keep it up next week.
Julian Hart with her 4 baguettes.
With her 4 baguettes. Yep.
Tag team.
It was all good stuff. So we'll see if they can keep it up next week at Charlotte for Fight for the Fallen. Lots of good stuff on that card already, and lots of stuff that they can get done. And Rampage is on its way. All right. Well, we will be here next week to cover it, plus anything else that happens in Impact, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and the rest of the strange world of the Forbidden Door. So for All Elite Reviewing, I am Josh Starnes.
And I'm Shamik Ghosh, and I am super pumped for Masters of the Universe tonight. Woo! That comes out today. Sorry,
you nerd.
I'm very, very excited for that.
You unbelievable nerd.
Yeah, okay, like begets like, but okay. Pot kettle black, hi.
What am I wearing a shirt with a comic character on it?
You're actually wearing your shirt with something on it today. That's the difference. You have your nondescript black.
It has it's Spider-Man because I'm wearing my old Bedrock City Comics shirt.
Oh, there you go. Nerd. Oh, I'm the nerd. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you hit that one on the head. Just me. No one else wearing a comic book.
I wouldn't be caught dead wearing a shirt with He-Man.
Literally a shirt comic book guy from The Simpsons would wear. But okay, but at least a lot sizes less, so that's good.
On that note, cue the music.